Welcome to G Fun Facts Online. In the vast, hostile emptiness of space, where there's no air, temperatures swing wildly, and radiation bombards everything, scientists have found an unlikely hero. It's not a high-tech robot or a superhero astronaut. It's something you've probably walked on 1,000 times without a second thought. Moss. This humble green carpet, one of the first plants to ever conquer land, is now showing us it has what it takes to conquer the cosmos. The story of moss in space isn't just a weird science experiment. It's a tale of survival against impossible odds, and it could be the key to humanity's future among the stars. The idea of growing gardens in space is almost as old as the dream of spaceflight itself. Russian scientist Konstantin Tsiolkovsky first imagined using plants to create breathable air for space crews over a century ago. The field got its official name, Astro-Botany, in 1945, laying the groundwork for studying plants beyond Earth. The first real-world tests began shortly after World War II. In 1946, a V-2 rocket launched by the U.S. carried maize seeds into the upper atmosphere, and, miraculously, they were recovered. This was the start. These early experiments were mostly about one thing: seeing what space radiation does to living things. A truly iconic moment came in 1971 with Apollo 14. Astronauts took about 500 tree seeds, including loblolly pine, sycamore, and redwood, on a trip around the moon. Back on Earth, these moon trees were planted and grew up right alongside their Earthbound siblings, showing no significant differences. It was a huge boost of confidence. Then came the era of space stations, which allowed for much longer experiments. In 1982, aboard the Soviet Salyut 7 station, a tiny plant called Arabidopsis became the first to ever complete its entire life cycle in space. It flowered and produced seeds, proving that plants could, in theory, reproduce in orbit. But it wasn't easy. Without gravity to tell them which way is down, plants got confused. Roots and shoots grew in tangled, disoriented messes. These problems led to innovations like the veggie growth chamber on the International Space Station. And in 2015, we saw the incredible result. Astronauts on the ISS harvested and ate the first ever space-grown lettuce. While all this work was happening with food crops, a quieter revolution was brewing with a much older, tougher group of plants: mosses. These plants first colonized land 450 million years ago, and they thrive in some of Earth's most extreme places, from frigid mountains to scorching deserts. Their incredible hardiness made them perfect candidates for the ultimate test: the raw, unfiltered environment of outer space. The International Space Station orbits about 400 kilometers above us. Inside, it's a pressurized, relatively safe haven. But the outside is one of the harshest environments imaginable. It's a vacuum, with extreme temperature swings and a constant blast of solar and cosmic radiation. This is where scientists decided to put moss to the test. In March 2022, a team from Hokkaido University in Japan sent hundreds of moss reproductive structures, called sporophytes, to the ISS. But they didn't keep them safe inside. They mounted them on an external platform, the Japanese Kibo Module's exposure facility, for 283 days, 9 months of direct exposure to the vacuum of space. The lead author, Tomomichi Fujita, said they expected almost zero survival. The result was the complete opposite. After being brought back to Earth, over 80% of the moss spores survived. Not only did they survive, but they germinated and grew into healthy new moss plants. The researchers were, in their own words, genuinely astonished. This wasn't the first time moss had visited space. An earlier experiment showed that a common roof moss grew in a strange spiral pattern in microgravity, hinting at a primitive growth mechanism that's usually hidden by gravity's pull. But the Hokkaido experiment was the first to show such a staggering survival rate on the outside of the station. The experiment was designed to push the moss to its absolute limits. Back in the lab, they had tested different parts of the moss under simulated space conditions. The juvenile plants died. Specialized stem cells did a little better. But the sporophytes, which contain the spores, were incredibly tough. They showed a tolerance to UV radiation about 1,000 times greater than other moss cells. This resilience comes from the sporophyte's thick, spongy casing, which acts like a natural shield against UV rays and dehydration. It's likely the same evolutionary trick that allowed moss to leave the water and colonize land in the first place. The most damaging force was the direct UV radiation, which damaged some of the chlorophyll needed for photosynthesis. But even the spores that weren't shielded from UV had a germination rate of 86%. Based on their data, the team created a model suggesting these spores could potentially survive in open space for up to 15 years. So how does this tiny plant pull off such an incredible feat? It comes down to two biological superpowers, honed over 500 million years, the ability to live without water, and a genius-level DNA repair kit. First, let's talk about life without water, or anhydrobiosis. For most living things, drying out is fatal. But for moss, it's just a nap. When a moss dries out, it enters a state of suspended animation. It produces special sugars and proteins that act like bubble wrap for its cells, protecting them from damage. Its metabolism slows to a near standstill. It can stay like this for years, waiting for a drop of water to spring back to life. The desert moss Centrichia caenanervis is a master at this, recovering within seconds of rehydration, even after losing 98% of its water. This ability is perfect for space. The vacuum instantly boils away unprotected water, but a moss in its anhydrobiotic state is already prepared for extreme dryness. That's how the spores on the ISS survived. They were simply dormant, their biological clocks paused. The second superpower is even more critical, guarding the genome. Space is flooded with high-energy cosmic radiation that can shred DNA, the instruction manual for life. Any organism hoping to survive out there needs a way to fix this damage, and moss is exceptionally good at it. The moss used in the ISS experiment, Fiscomitrium patens, is known to be hyper-resistant to the most lethal kind of DNA damage. It has highly efficient repair mechanisms, especially a process called homologous recombination. This high-fidelity system uses an undamaged copy of the DNA as a template to perfectly fix any breaks. When this moss gets hit with radiation, it ramps up the production of a whole suite of DNA repair genes. It can tolerate a huge amount of DNA damage before it becomes fatal. Understanding this resilience is a major goal for astrobotanists. By studying the genes responsible, scientists hope we could one day engineer other plants, like food crops, to have the same radiation tolerance. That would be a game changer for long-term space agriculture. Now, surviving as a dormant spore is one thing. Actually growing a thriving moss garden in space is another challenge entirely. The main culprit is microgravity. On Earth, gravity is the ultimate guide. It tells roots to grow down and shoots to grow up. In space, that guide is gone. As we saw with the common roof moss that grew in spirals, plants get disoriented. For moss, which has a simpler structure, these effects happen at the cellular level. Gravity-sensing organelles get scrambled, affecting the direction of growth. Then there's the problem of watering. In microgravity, water doesn't pour. It forms floating spheres due to surface tension. This can either drown a plant's roots or leave them to dry out. NASA developed special plant pillows with a clay-like medium to help distribute water and nutrients evenly. Mosses absorb water through their leaves, which simplifies things a bit, but they still need a carefully controlled humid environment. Japan's space moss experiment on the ISS was designed specifically to tackle these issues, analyzing how microgravity affects moss growth, gene expression, and photosynthesis. Unlocking these secrets is key to cultivating plants on long-duration missions. The incredible toughness of moss has ignited the imagination of scientists. It's no longer just a subject of study. It's being seen as a tool for our future in space, from creating breathable air inside a spaceship to laying the groundwork for transforming entire planets. For any long trip, like a mission to Mars, carrying all the oxygen, water, and food you need is impossible. The solution is something called a bioregenerative life support system. Essentially, a self-sustaining, closed-loop ecosystem. Plants would use photosynthesis to recycle astronaut waste, produce oxygen, and grow food. Moss is a perfect candidate for these systems. It's highly efficient at photosynthesis, doesn't need a complex root system, and can thrive in small, confined spaces. Aquatic mosses are even being studied as biofilters to purify wastewater, a critical task for recycling every last drop on a long mission. And we can't forget the psychological boost. Astronauts consistently report that caring for plants provides a powerful, relaxing connection to Earth in an otherwise sterile environment. But the grandest vision of all is terraforming. The idea of transforming a dead planet like Mars into a living world that could one day support human life without a spacesuit. This would be a project of monumental scale, and Moss is considered the perfect pioneer to kick it all off. Mars today is hostile. Its thin atmosphere is mostly carbon dioxide, its surface is sterilized by UV radiation, and its soil is likely toxic. Before we can plant trees, we need something that can survive the initial shock and start making the environment more livable. Enter the desert moss Centrichia caeninervis. It has shown it can survive simulated Martian conditions in the lab. On Earth, this moss helps create fertile soil. On Mars, it could do the same thing, slowly fixing nitrogen, adding organic matter to the regolith, and, most importantly, photosynthesizing. It would slowly start pumping oxygen into the thin Martian air. This is, of course, a vision for the far future, something that could take centuries or even millennia. But studying how moss could survive on Mars is the very first step. As astrobiologist Rebecca Goncalves puts it, in future colonies on the Moon or Mars, every resource will be limited. Moss, with its minimal needs and maximum resilience, is a powerful tool to overcome those limits. The story of moss in space is still unfolding. From its bizarre spiral growth to its shocking survival in a vacuum, moss has consistently proven that it's one of nature's ultimate survivors. This research isn't just about preparing for a future on other worlds. It also teaches us about life on our own. Understanding how plants adapt to extreme environments helps us develop more resilient crops to face a changing climate here on Earth. The humble moss has become a powerful symbol of life's tenacity. The green shoots that sprouted from spores that tasted the void of space are a promise. A promise that the barren red dust of Mars might one day be touched by the green of Earth. The astonishing resilience of moss in space isn't just a fun fact. It's the beginning of a new chapter in the story of life itself.